Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium Discourses with Sajjad Ayub and Shaykh Ebrahim Schuitma.
Alaikum salam.
Today we're going to be discussing Discourse 21, which is Allah is the light. Allah nuru samawati wal ard. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Light is the root of all existence, is it not? Not just a poetic sense, but a material and physical one. E equals mc squared. Einstein's formula.
Yes, I think that must be true. I mean, we can go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here about, what's real and what's metaphorical. And is the metaphorical more real than the material? Because I think it is. So there's clearly, for something to be, it has to emanate, otherwise it'll be a black hole.
Right.
And that sense of that, our first sort of sense of emanation is light. So that would make sense. I mean, if you were to be completely materialist about this. But there's also, in a metaphorical sense, it is, if you see existence as radiance, it means then that a precondition or an implicit condition, not pre, but it's what is implicitly true in that idea of radiance is generosity. It means to be is to be generous. It means to radiate your nature. If something doesn't radiate its nature, it isn't. So I think we might have spoken about this before, but for me to be able to see anything, even my own hand, I mean, there's light has to leave my hand, transcend the interspace between my eye and my hand, go into my eye and be reflected somewhere in my being. In other words, if my hand doesn't give of itself, if it doesn't radiate its nature, it isn't. This also reflects on our previous discussion that if you don't radiate, you only are to the degree to which you radiate your nature. So there's this South African philosopher who died in the 90s, I think he passed away, but he very famously said that in all the art of the world, the principle of evil is described as a gaping maw. In other words, it's a darkness that consumes. So the principle of evil says, come here and be me. I want to consume you. The principle of good says, go out and be yourself. It radiates, it grants, it gives. So in that sense, the first act of creation, the first radiance is an expression of extraordinary generosity. It's a giving. That's the other thing that light does. It gives of itself to give away. It leaves the place where it was. I mean, once the light has left the sun can't say, hey, by the way, I want that piece of that photon back. Where's that photon now? It's gone, Mr. Sun, it's left you. Right, it's never going to come back. So that's what radiance implies. Radiance implies this element of generosity, this giving to give away, this overflowing, this sort of incontainable. And it's the nature of that element to overcome the darkness and the maw of not being. I mean, in the darkest night, the tiniest light can be seen over vast distances. So it's the nature of light to transcend darkness. It's the nature of the generous to overcome emptiness. It's the nature of existence to that which exists, that which gives of itself, to overcome the emptiness of non-being. So there's enormous significance to understanding this idea of light being the basis of existence, the basis of being. It confirms the reasonableness of the proposition that you exist to give, that to give is to be. And it also confirms how deeply self-destructive selfishness is. You know. Also, it also suggests that insofar as we radiate, we are emanating him, because he is the light. So when you allow yourself to become a point of radiance by giving of your nature, the thing that is giving is him. You know, in a sense, you need, for that to, another way of understanding this is, for the radiance to happen, you have to actually get out of your way, out of your own way, which is a little bit like saying, you know, that's why one needs to pursue fanafilah, because you need to, this idea that you exist as a separate entity, this darkness, this illusion, needs to get out of the way so that who you really are can bubble over, can kind of spill forth, can radiate. And it's a very common theme in a lot of tasawwuf, this idea that there's only one emanation. It's his emanation. There's only one light. And that every one of us are refractions of the one light. Insofar as we are light and not darkness, then we'll reflect that light. We're not even reflected. We will be an emanation of it, like a prism of it.
That brings me on to my next point is, so the metaphor of the white light being refracted into different colors of the spectrum is how you describe the attributes of Allah, being refracted from its original source. How does that affect us as human beings?
Well, no, that is exactly right. So you can see our individual existence as a reducing valve. I mean, you have to do something to white light. You have to interfere with white light in order for it to be refracted into the rainbow. And you can see the lens that interferes with the white light, that refracts it into, that splits it up into the various colors of the rainbow. You can see that lens as something that reduces. It kind of, perverts is a harsh word, but sort of it interferes with the original emanation to create the diversity. There's one that is reduced to produce diversity. So your being is a reducing mechanism whereby the original light emanates into the world. The single, so there's behind your eyes, there's this reality, which is closer to you than your jugular vein, which is his reality, his nature. That vastness is this beam.
Mm.
And then this beam kind of hits your nervous system, your makeup. And your makeup is a lens that takes that and it reduces it to what your being is meant to emanate into the world. So there is this understanding that's kind of now, it's the result of near-death experience. It says that we have a completely inverted view of the relationship between mind and brain. We have the materialist view suggests that mind is the function of the physiology of the brain. That mind is an epiphenomenon, and that the real thing is the electronic impulses, the popping synapses of your brain. Now that's so basically you are nothing other than operating neural tissue. You know, that's why, you know, they think of, you know, I affect your mind by affecting your brain. That kind of worked until there was this growing body of near-death experience research that came up with the most unnerving finding, is that when people come back from having died, and by the way, a lot of people are now. This is not sort of a rare event because of the skill that medical science has now to basically, you know, pull people back from the brink. There's many people who have come back from the brink with accounts of having gone, and they're cultural, their accounts, sort of the idea of the white light, the tunnel, and it's a very common experience, meeting ancestors or meeting loved ones who have passed on, and so on. So many people have these experiences, and it's true for everybody. But and there have been some extreme cases. So there was I forget the man's surname. He's a doctor. His first name is Eben. But he did research he actually was a brain surgeon, this guy, the top brain surgeon. And he got a really virulent form of meningitis.
Mm.
He was technically brain dead. I mean, he wasn't. There was no chance of him ever regaining consciousness. He was going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life, and the prognosis was actually it's almost impossible to keep him alive with the infection that he had. It was like really unusual, very extreme. And so they'd written the guy off. And then after a number of days in this really deep coma, literally the contents of his skull had been reduced to pus. The man woke up from this experience. Now, bear in mind, he was a top brain surgeon, so he should know that what had happened, what he had experienced was not possible, because he didn't have a brain to experience it with, But he had these immense accounts of, having gone to the hereafter and having seen, paradise, and having seen the siblings he didn't, because he was an adopted person. So his siblings he didn't even know existed, who had passed on already. And so this is an amazing account, And so how is it possible that the man technically no longer has a brain and still has conscious experience? That's exactly the point, which means to say that you can't view the mind as an epiphenomenon to brain. You understand? The mind doesn't, the brain doesn't produce mind. It's the other way around. Mind pre-exists brain. The brain is a reducing valve that gives you a dumbed-down experience so you don't get too disruptive with your colleagues. It's a kind of like so that's exactly how one should view this idea of your own individual identity, your own physiology of experience, your brain, your biography. It's a portal where something which is really vast and beyond description get reduced to a point where it can make a particular emanation in the world. So Allah, the light of Allah, radiates through you. Your being is a portal whereby He can give of His nature to the world. The cow that gives the milk. I love this cow metaphor. I think we should take it home. I think it's a very nice one. The cow who gives the milk doesn't own the milk. It didn't produce the physiology that produces milk. In a sense, the cow is a portal through whom milk comes. So too, the blessing you're supposed to bestow on the world isn't yours. It comes through you. Get out of the way. Let it, allow it to emanate. Allow it to radiate. Because when you allow it to radiate, it is Him radiating.
So you feel as human beings, we have nothing to give, only to reflect. Or
yeah. Yes. When what you're giving is unconditional, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. There's no managing of the affair. That means to say, it's no longer you acting. It is truly giving to give away. So there's that, the event in the life of the Prophet where he picked up the handful of sand and cast it at the enemy. And then it was revealed to him afterwards when you threw it, it wasn't you who threw, it was Allah through you. Now, so in other words, so one wonders, how did that happen? I mean, did he logically work this out? Standing on the battlefield, I need to pick up a handful of sand and throw it at these people. I mean, from a rational point of view, I mean, you could say, but I mean, if we, I mean, God forbid, but let's assume we could go back and have the conversation with Rasul. Ya Rasul, I mean, I don't mean to be respectful, but how did you work this out? I would not be surprised if he said, I have no idea. I just did it. Just completely spontaneous. It happened through me. And I think that's the most elevated and noble way to live a life. One that's no longer managing, one that allows things to spontaneously come through you. And you are like an aperture through which the divine can intercede. And then you've got to get out the way. You've got to stop trying to run the show. Yeah.
If there was not one source of meaning, all language would be meaningless. I don't fully understand this. Can you clarify this?
So are languages mutually intelligible? And I think they are. Which means to say you could, we've agreed on a convention for something, and another group of people have agreed on a convention for something. And when I make a certain sound, I ascribe this meaning to that sound. And when you make a completely different sound, you ascribe a meaning to the sound. But the meanings are the same. Otherwise, the languages couldn't be mutually intelligible. We wouldn't be able to translate. But we're both referring to something that's there, that is true. So if there wasn't something that is true, there cannot be things, your sense of meaning doesn't have a base plate to stand on. It's just, if it would all just be gibberish. So I think it has to be true that there is a common source to all meaning. And that source is the same metaphorically. It's the same as this idea of the emanation of light. It is a sense of what is true, what is real, what exists. All meaning derives from that. If you denied that, then basically there is no meaning. That's why the only way to be an absolutely honest atheist is to commit suicide, because there's no significance. There's no meaning.
That's a different way to look at it.
So next time you meet a person who claims to be an atheist, you say, why aren't you dead? You're dishonest.
I get the sense that seeing the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the smallest of things. Would that be correct?
Yes, I think that is correct. I think that so if we say that all that exists is an emanation of his nature, it means that everything that exists, from the the most apparently trivial to the most overwhelming, reflects his nature. And that suggests that nothing that you encounter in your day-to-day life is arbitrary. You see, I think that that's the reason for boredom. I mean, we need greater and greater stimulation to stay entertained. You know, a Pac-Man game that would have entertained you in the 70s or in the 80s, you know, now you just think, oh God, how could anybody have been entertained by that? You know, and now you need something so sophisticated. It needs people playing all over the world, doing, you know, on like PCs and machines that require huge amounts of you know, graphics, and it just shows you that we get deadened to things. You see, we need more and more. You know, just ask me the question again. I got lost in my own metaphor.
So the sense of seeing the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means that Allah subhanahu, so we see him in the smallest of
That's
things.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this wanting the big, the dramatic, dumbs us down. It deadens us to the reality. Every moment that you're alive presents his face to you. You know, just like you have a face, and your face isn't your reality, it's your persona, it's your mask. What is his persona? Well, he said, wherever you look is the face of Allah. His persona is the world that is presented to you in every moment that you're in, you know? And every part of it is part of his face. And another interesting thing about a face is that it talks. I mean, that's what faces do. That's how we understand the idea of face. So every moment that you're in is him talking to you, you know? But he doesn't only shout, you see. I mean, he also talks in subtleties. He talks in immense subtleties, greater subtlety, because he is Al-Latif. So he speaks in greater subtlety than human consciousness can bear. So it's very fine, the messaging that you're getting. It's very minutely well scripted. So if you aren't only, you know, not just looking out for the grand things, the dramatic things like, you know, Star Wars and kind of Raiders of the Galaxy, but in the fine minutiae of your day-to-day experience, you find the footprints of his message to you, you know. And so nothing is arbitrary. Everything is significant. This is one of the violences that we do to people when we insist that they become like ourselves. You know, like my children have to be like me, or you know, that we basically give them our prejudices. And what do our prejudices do? Our prejudices basically say what's significant and what isn't significant. It's really a filtering process. It dumbs people's experience down. Because if you really want to give your children a boon, then give them a wonder of life, an amazement at just how extraordinary things are. You know, from the look at this ant. Just let's come. Don't you want to go get the magnifying glass? Man, imagine what must be going on in those tiny little hair-thin legs for that thing to be able to crawl across the surface. You know. Oh, that's amazing. You know, so, you know, and you wouldn't even see that normally. It would kill the damn thing. It's dirty. It shouldn't be here. You know, it's kind of like, it doesn't fit our description. We want, you know, we want the significant, you know, the doctor, the professor, the PhD, you know.
It reminds me of when I was younger. My father used to say to my mother, "Look, what is he doing out there in the garden? Why does he have a magnifying glass?" And I used to have this little device. I used to have a little cap, and you put the ant in it, and you close it in there, and the magnifying glass would look. And I'd be looking at this ant and the magnificence of it. And my father used to joke to me, "What is he doing there? Why is he picking up these things and looking in such detail? Why is he amazed by the wonders of?" And,
exactly.
And as you said that, I saw the 4 or 5 year old version of myself doing that.
And what really is apparent in what you're describing now, Sajjad, is that when we take that away from our children, we basically rob their lives of magic. Yeah. We give them a very poor, grainy black and white film after they had this explosion of Technicolor.
Mm.
You know, this and then we're surprised that we get to our 40s and we're kind of depressed. And life has very little meaning, and it's you know, it's all dark and kind of you know, sort of nothing has much savor anymore. I mean, you can't. So I can remember eating sausages as a child, and I can never regain that taste.
Mm.
Things just don't taste like they tasted when I was a child. There's, you know, everything,
It's true.
our beings are dumbed down. They
Mm.
dumbed down. They kind of, we no longer experience the wonder of what is there, you know, because it really is truly magnificent.
Mm. What a wonderful way to end that topic. Jazakallah khair. And thank you. And join us on the next discourse. Assalamu alaikum.